What if I told you that you've been approaching the markets all wrong? That what you think is a system problem or a strategy issue is actually something much deeper, something psychological? That's the recurring theme you'll feel vibrating through every chapter of the New Market Wizards. You're not just learning setups, you're learning how traders think, feel, and evolve. And it starts with this truth. You're not trading charts. You're trading your beliefs about what those charts mean. When Schwager sits across from trading legends, he doesn't just ask what indicators they use. He peels back the layers. What do they believe? What drives their decisions when nothing makes sense? Why do they act when others freeze? In every story, whether it's from a futures scalper, an options trader, or a macro manager, you'll realize the real game is internal. Think about this. Have you ever taken a trade that wasn't in your plan and it worked? Then you felt smart, so you did it again. But the next time, you got crushed. That pattern, success reinforcing bad behavior, is a psychological landmine. And Schwager exposes it with sharp conversations that double as trading therapy. You'll hear from traders who didn't just develop an edge, they refined a worldview. They talk about losing money for months to test a hypothesis. They endured ridicule and self-doubt while trying things nobody else believed in. This isn't just about tactics, it's about the mindset that allows breakthrough. Take Tom Basso, for example. Basso says, "I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm just trying to make good decisions in the present." That's a foundational shift. You start to realize your job isn't to forecast. It's to consistently apply a method rooted in logic, humility, and risk management. And let's not forget Tony Saliba, who built his edge on obsessive self-review. He wasn't just logging trades. He was tracking emotions, outcomes, and thought patterns. He was building a mental model of himself. That level of introspection is what transformed him from average to exceptional. Here's the key. You're in a performance sport with no finish line. The New Market Wizard shows that the elite don't stop refining. They keep dissecting their own thinking. They stay curious. They approach trading like a craft, one that demands presence, honesty, and adaptation. And Schwager keeps pressing that lesson home. The market doesn't care about your opinion. It doesn't reward you for hard work. It rewards clarity, adaptability, and discipline. That's why traders who make it big are usually the ones who mastered themselves first. You're not battling a ticker symbol. You're battling your interpretation of uncertainty. You're fighting against every urge to chase, to hope, to fear missing out. And the New Market Wizards doesn't offer some 10-step plan. It gives you access to the minds of those who've endured and evolved and asks you to face your own reflection in their stories. This section leaves you with one crucial question. Are you building a technical edge or a psychological one? Because without the latter, the former crumbles under pressure. You don't blow up your account because the market is cruel. You blow up because you misjudge risk. You underestimate how long a losing streak can last. You refuse to accept that even the best setups fail. And that's the psychological root of destruction that the New Market Wizards lays bare. Risk isn't just numbers. It's your relationship with uncertainty. Bruce Kovner, one of the greatest traders featured, puts it bluntly. I know where I'm getting out before I get in. That's the attitude of a professional. Most traders, they ask, how much can I make? Instead of, what happens if I'm wrong? And that mindset, profit first, protection later, kills accounts. This isn't about setting a stop loss. It's about accepting that anything can happen. If your strategy only works when the market behaves normally, then it's a trap waiting to snap. Schwager's traders repeatedly stress the importance of risk-defined thinking. It's the idea that your primary role is to survive, not to dominate. You hear from traders who walked away from massive profits simply because risk had increased. Not because they were scared, but because they knew their edge had eroded. One trader said, I'd rather be out of a trade wishing I were in than in a trade wishing I were out. That's risk maturity. Another layer to this is emotional distortion. You think you're being rational, but you're making bets based on hope, revenge, or pressure to recover losses. The moment you start trading from your pain instead of your plan, risk isn't controlled. It's exploding quietly under your account. And the most dangerous risk? Believing you're in control when you're not. That false sense of certainty, the overconfidence that comes after a winning streak, can lead to your worst drawdowns. Schwager shows how even seasoned pros have been humbled when they let confidence turn into arrogance. Have you ever told yourself, this one can't fail? That's the warning sign. That's when your defenses drop. That's when risk turns from manageable to catastrophic. Schwager's interviews give you those moments of reflection where you see your own past mistakes mirrored in the war stories of the masters. What separates the survivors is humility. They respect the market. They admit they don't know what happens next, and so they size their positions accordingly. They don't get bigger because they feel good. They get smaller when they're uncertain. That's how risk becomes a tool instead of a trap. It's not just about how much you risk, it's about when and why. Many of Schwager's interviewees tie their risk to volatility, conviction, and adaptability. They don't blindly follow a percentage. They match exposure to opportunity. That means sometimes sitting out, sometimes trading small, and always living to trade another day. So the next time you stare at your P&L, ask, am I managing risk or chasing reward? Because if you can't answer that honestly, then your account isn't in the market's hands. It's in the hands of your unchecked impulses. And that's the hidden message in this chapter. You don't get destroyed by market movement. You get destroyed by refusing to accept your own vulnerability within that movement. Every trade carries risk. The real skill? Staying in the game long enough to learn how to survive it. Your edge isn't your win rate. It's not your system. It's your ability to follow through on a plan while the market tempts you with doubt. That's why in the New Market Wizards, again and again, Schwager's traders emphasize the same truth. The ones who win aren't the smartest. They're the most self-controlled. The market punishes ego. If you're trying to prove you're right, you're going to lose. Because this game isn't about being right. It's about being profitable. And that shift from needing to be right to simply needing to execute with consistency is the turning point between losing and winning traders. Take Randy McKay, a phenomenal short-term trader who understood this deeply. He didn't try to catch every move. He didn't care about being right on the news. He focused on finding a pattern that worked over time and stuck to it like a machine. His motto, trade small, trade often, and be consistent. That kind of detachment from outcome is what makes you durable. In contrast, traders who chase accuracy, who get high on being right, often end up increasing size at the wrong time. They add to losers. They fight the tape. They're not following probabilities. They're feeding their identity. And when the market pushes back, it hurts twice as hard, in your account and in your pride. You've felt it, haven't you? That voice that says, I know this trade will work. It's not your system speaking. It's your ego. And when ego drives decisions, rules get bent, risk gets ignored, and edge disappears. You're not in the prediction business. You're in the decision-making business. And decisions to be powerful must be made in alignment with an edge, not emotion. Schwager's traders repeatedly highlight this. They don't focus on the outcome of any single trade. They focus on executing the next trade correctly, because that's all they can control. Marty Schwartz, one of the featured legends, echoes this mindset when he says, I used to try to will the market into doing what I wanted. Now I just try to go with the flow. That's the evolution, moving from force to flow, from proving to responding. You can't force profits, but you can force discipline. And the moment you stop trying to impress yourself with winning trades and instead impress yourself with accurate, repeated execution, that's when you step into the realm of professional behavior. Edge isn't flashy, it's boring, it's repetitive, it's dull to outsiders. But to you, it should be sacred, because your job isn't to look smart, it's to make high-quality decisions with an uncertain outcome. That's the mental model Schwager gives you through these interviews. A trader isn't an oracle. A trader is a risk manager executing known advantages over and over again. The edge might be 55% or even less. But when applied over hundreds of trades, it creates consistency, and consistency breeds confidence. So next time you look at a chart and feel that itch to prove something, to force the trade that'll make you feel validated, stop. Ask yourself, am I trading my edge or my ego? Because when edge leads, results follow. When ego leads, disaster's just one trade away. Wait, have you ever broken your trading plan because of a red candle? Have you ever exited too early, only to watch price hit your original target without you? That's the kind of emotional sabotage Schwager dives into in The New Market Wizards. This isn't about entries, it's about what pain does to your process. Every trader faces pain. The question is, what do you do when it hits? The traders Schwager interviews didn't just take losses, they took gutting losses. Account wrecking, identity shaking, ego destroying losses. But they didn't quit. They learned to sit with pain, to extract the lesson instead of running from it. One of the most raw interviews is with Mark Ritchie. His story is drenched in loss. But in that pain, he found his core strength, faith in process. He says, I don't need to know what the market will do. I need to know I'll respond correctly when it does it. That's psychological steel. Too many traders think losses are signs that they're failing, but Schwager's book reframes it. Losses are tuition. You pay to gain market wisdom. You pay to build emotional resilience. The trick is not to avoid pain, it's to structure it so it doesn't knock you out. How? Start with rules. Rigid, honest rules that tell you when to stop, when to reduce, and when to walk away. Because if you rely on how you feel when you're losing, you're already lost. The pros don't ask themselves if they're ready to stop trading. They follow a process that already decided for them. Take Linda Raschke. Her emotional control came from brutal experience. After blowing up once, she decided to treat trading like a job. That meant defining when she was in emotional risk and adjusting her size or stepping away when the data, not her emotions, told her she was vulnerable. Here's something painful but powerful. Your emotional threshold isn't fixed. It's shaped by experience, losses, and recovery. Every time you survive pain and stay disciplined, your psychological capital increases. But every time you give in, every time you move your stop, average down, or ignore a rule, you weaken your foundation. There's also this myth that top traders are emotionless. That's a lie. They feel everything. You can hear it in their voices. But they've built buffers between their emotions and their actions. They've rehearsed failure. They've visualized drawdowns. They've gamified discomfort. And Schwager pushes this truth in every story. Trading pain is inevitable. Avoiding it is delusion. The only way through is to experience it, analyze it, and prepare for it before it strikes. So the next time a trade goes against you and your chest tightens and your screen feels like it's mocking you, ask, is this pain useful? If the answer is no, step away. But if the answer is yes, then dig, write, analyze, improve. Because the traders who survive aren't the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who use it. Discipline isn't sexy, but it's your edge. It's the one thing every trader in the New Market Wizards had in common. Systems were different. Timeframes were all over the map. But the thread tying them together, ruthless, religious commitment to execution. You can't control the market. You can't control outcomes. But you can control your process. And when Schwager's traders talk, they don't speak about prediction. They speak about alignment. Alignment with their plan, with their risk parameters, with their routines. Take Ed Seykota. His interview is one of the most quoted for a reason. He said, the elements of good trading are 1. Cutting losses, 2. Cutting losses, and 3. Cutting losses. That's not a strategy. That's a mindset. And it comes from discipline, not just knowledge. You think you'll be disciplined after you win. But these traders were disciplined before they won. That's the point. You don't earn discipline. You build it, choice by choice, repetition by repetition, rule by rule. And discipline is most valuable when it's hardest to maintain. Anyone can follow their rules in a hot streak. But what about when nothing works? When the setups fail back to back? That's when your brain screams, try something new. And that's when discipline whispers, trust your process. Schwager's interviews are filled with traders who didn't switch systems during drawdowns. They reviewed, they reduced risk, they waited. Because they knew, the moment you let discomfort dictate your behavior, you've handed control to randomness. Even more compelling is how these traders structured discipline. Some used checklists. Others had trading journals with post-trade analysis. Many followed fixed routines every morning. Not because it gave them certainty, but because it anchored their mind to something stable in an unstable environment. Then there's Jim Rogers, who said, I just wait until there's money lying in the corner, and all I have to do is go over there and pick it up. That's patience. That's discipline in action. Waiting until the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor rather than forcing mediocre setups. So ask yourself, what's your process when you're off your game? What behaviors do you default to under stress? That's where discipline gets exposed. It's not how you act when it's easy, it's how you act when you're doubting everything. Discipline is the immune system of your trading. It fights the virus of tilt. It neutralizes the infection of revenge trading. It shields you from your worst impulses. But only if it's been built through structure, not improvisation. And Schwager's work reminds you, talent doesn't win in the markets. Discipline does. If you want to be in the game for decades, not just lucky runs, you have to make discipline the backbone of your trading identity. Because in the end, it's not your strategy that saves you. It's your ability to follow it, especially when everything inside you wants to abandon it. The market evolves. So must you. That's the unspoken rule behind every trader Schwager interviews. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow, and the ones who thrive, they adapt, not react. They evolve, not cling. Many of the traders in the new market wizards started out trading one style, only to completely reinvent themselves when conditions changed. Why? Because the market doesn't reward stubbornness. It punishes it. You're not here to be loyal to a setup. You're here to be loyal to survival. Look at William Eckhard. He began as a systems trader, but constantly challenged his own rules. He didn't view his strategy as sacred. He viewed it as a working hypothesis. That's the mindset. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is immune to decay. Even your best edge has a shelf life, and yet most traders resist change. You keep running the same playbook, hoping the market comes back. But the market doesn't owe you conformity. It's a fluid, living thing. Your strategy isn't a monument, it's a raft. You don't worship it. You ride it while it floats, and build another when it sinks. Adaptability is more than technical. It's emotional. You have to give yourself permission to let go. Permission to admit something stopped working. That's why Schwager's best traders weren't just students of the market. They were students of themselves. You see this with Stanley Druckenmiller. He adapted from macro themes to shorter-term trades when volatility demanded it. And when conditions shifted again, he changed back. No pride, just performance. That's what keeps him in the game. Ask yourself, are you trading what the market is or what you wish it was? Because if you're trading yesterday's environment with yesterday's rules, you're handing your capital to someone who's already adapted to today. Schwager's traders don't chase perfection. They chase alignment. They recalibrate. They test. They observe. They track the data. And when the edge softens, they don't pray. They pivot. So how do you build adaptability? First, detach from identity. You're not a breakout trader. You're a decision maker. Second, track your results. Know when your edge is fading, not because of fear, but because the data demands it. Third, stay humble. Arrogance resists change. Curiosity invites it. Adaptation isn't the opposite of discipline. It's the extension of it. Discipline helps you follow the rules. Adaptation helps you change them when the evidence says to. And that balance, structure with flexibility, is what turns a good trader into a lasting one. Because at the end of the day, the market doesn't care what worked for you last year. It only cares about how you respond right now. Confidence in trading is not about knowing what's going to happen. It's about being fully prepared for whatever could happen. That's why in the new market wizards, Schwager's interviews reveal something vital. Top traders are bold, but never certain. Certainty is a trap. It feels powerful, but it blinds you. Confidence, on the other hand, is built on flexibility. It's the ability to make a high-conviction decision without needing it to be right. That subtle distinction changes everything. Just listen to Bill Lipschutz. He said, if most traders would learn to sit on their hands 50% of the time, they would make a lot more money. Why? Because good trading isn't about constant action. It's about waiting for asymmetric opportunities, then executing without hesitation. Confidence is knowing you can lose and still be fine. It's trusting your edge over a series of trades, not a single one. Schwager's traders never said, I knew I'd be right. They said things like, the trade made sense based on the data, and the risk was manageable. That's real confidence. False confidence demands being right. Real confidence just requires preparation. Another key element is size. Confident traders don't bet big to prove themselves. They bet appropriately. If uncertainty increases, size decreases. That's not fear, it's control. As Paul Tudor Jones says, don't focus on making money, focus on protecting what you have. That's what allows you to stay confident. Your downside is planned, your upside is optional. This mindset allows elite traders to act decisively without emotional attachment. They aren't paralyzed by indecision. They aren't chasing hope. They are executing a well-rehearsed process in the face of uncertainty. You've likely felt it, the urge to make it back after a loss. That isn't confidence. That's desperation in disguise. And Schwager's interviews expose this over and over. The best traders separate how they feel from what they do. And confidence is earned through repetition, through testing, tracking, reviewing, through knowing you've done the work. That's why journaling is so common among these traders, not for nostalgia, but for feedback. They know their decision-making track record, and they trust it. So if you've been swinging between arrogance and fear, consider this. Both are symptoms of a confidence that isn't grounded. Build your conviction the right way. Prep, review, test, size properly, and trade only when the conditions match your edge. Because confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. True confidence is quiet, measured, controlled. It's not about being sure. It's about being steady. There's a hidden theme in the new market wizards, and it isn't strategy. It's obsession with learning. The most successful traders Schwager interviews aren't just money-focused. They're curiosity-driven. They're constantly evolving, not just in markets, but in how they think. And here's the truth. You don't grow by adding trades. You grow by reviewing them, by unpacking the why behind your decisions. These elite traders didn't just log entries. They studied them like scientists. They analyzed patterns in their behavior, their setups, their failures. Every mistake became a data point. Take Tom Baldwin. A pit trader in the T-bond market, he didn't learn by copying others. He learned by doing, then dissecting every action. When he blew up, he didn't blame the market. He blamed his process. He didn't seek certainty. He sought understanding. This is where most traders fall behind. You want profits without pain. You want to win without asking hard questions. But Schwager's traders, they lean into discomfort. They review losing trades without flinching. They measure what they can't see, emotions, habits, impulsiveness. It's not just about learning what works. It's about learning why you fail. The relentless learners treat their psychology like a trade setup. They track mental patterns. They refine decision-making. They journal triggers, not just price action. And the result? They get sharper, more self-aware, more consistent. That's not luck, it's structure. Compare that to traders who ignore reflection. They repeat mistakes. They rationalize. They build bad habits with no accountability. And they wonder why their curve flattens or reverses. Michelle Kennedy, one of the few women profiled in the book, was relentless about review. She didn't care how a trade felt. She cared about whether her decision followed the rules. That's the standard. That's the work. If you want to grow, get obsessed with the truth, the raw, unfiltered version of what you do in the market. What setups make you impulsive? What losses throw off your week? What wins inflate your ego? Ask those questions daily. And stop measuring growth only by profits. Measure it by awareness, by discipline, by resilience. Because Schwager's interviews prove something over and over. The best traders aren't defined by intelligence. They're defined by introspection. They improve themselves faster than they improve their edge. So build a system for reflection. Weekly reviews, daily journaling, post-trade grading. This is your edge, not just in execution, but in evolution. Because relentless learning isn't an option. It's your lifeline. What if I told you your need to predict is what's holding you back? That's the core wake-up call inside the new market wizards. Over and over, Schwager's interviews demolish the myth that successful traders are master forecasters. They're not. They're master reactors. You're not in the prediction business. You're in the reaction business. And the faster you embrace that, the faster your trading transforms. Take Tony Saliba. He didn't build his fortune by knowing what would happen. He built it by knowing what he'd do, no matter what happened. That's the key difference. One approach seeks control over the market. The other seeks control over the self. Think about how much energy you spend trying to guess the future. How many indicators, news reports, or analyst forecasts you digest, only to still get blindsided. Schwager's traders don't waste time chasing clairvoyance. They focus on if-then thinking. If the market does X, I'll do Y. That's trading. Everything else is fantasy. Marty Schwartz says it simply. I've found that the best traders are able to react quickly without hesitation. Why? Because they're not frozen by hope. They're not stuck waiting for validation. They act, adjust, cut, re-enter. That's the agility that edges out stubborn forecasters. And when you let go of prediction, you also let go of attachment. You stop marrying trades. You stop needing to be right. You just follow the plan. You trade the reaction, not your bias. The greatest danger of prediction? It anchors your mind. It makes you ignore signals because you're invested in an idea. And once you're anchored, you stop seeing clearly. You filter data to confirm your forecast. So here's the challenge. Can you detach from being right? Can you fall in love with responsiveness instead? Schwager's traders could. They built systems based on reactivity. They welcomed uncertainty because their methods didn't depend on certainty. Another crucial point, reacting well requires preparation. These traders didn't just wake up and wing it. They rehearsed, they journaled scenarios, they trained their execution muscle. That way, when a move came, they didn't hesitate. They executed. Prediction might feel powerful, but it's actually rigid. Reaction is fluid. Prediction creates blind spots. Reaction widens your field of awareness. And Schwager proves it, again and again, with traders who thrived by staying nimble. So start reframing your role. You're not a market oracle, you're a tactical responder. Your edge isn't in being early, it's in being ready. Because readiness wins in the long run, and readiness is built, not born. Across all the interviews in the New Market Wizards, one theme pulses at the core. Consistent winners don't just trade differently, they think differently. Their worldview, their internal operating system is unlike the average trader. And it's that psychological architecture that truly separates the elite. These traders don't see the market as a puzzle to solve. They see it as a mirror that reflects their beliefs, their flaws, their strengths, and their fears. And they work constantly to refine that reflection. That's what you learn from Schwager, not just how to trade, but how to be a trader. Consider Richard Driehaus, whose approach was driven by momentum and belief in the power of trends. His view? Buy high, sell higher. It wasn't just a strategy, it was a worldview. He believed in the market's ability to reveal strength, not hide it. That belief shaped how he interpreted data, how he timed trades, how he managed risk. Then there's James B. Rogers Jr., who embodies long-term conviction. He waits years for themes to materialize. His worldview isn't rushed. It's patient, strategic, and macro-driven. His edge is his perspective and his ability to endure. What you start realizing is that these traders aren't just executing trades. They're expressing philosophies. Some believe in randomness, others in patterns. Some trust data, others lean on gut. And yet, they all found consistency because they aligned strategy with belief. Schwager shows you it's not about copying setups, it's about discovering your own lens, the way you interpret market information, the way you experience risk, the way you recover from loss. You don't need to trade like Bill Lipschutz, but you do need to understand how he built his process around his psychology. That's the key. Every method in the book is built on internal alignment. And if your trading style doesn't match your personality, it won't last. You need to ask, what do I believe about the market? Is it efficient or chaotic? Is it random or reactive? Do I believe in trends or mean reversion? Your answers define your trading language. And if you're fluent in a language that isn't yours, confusion and inconsistency are inevitable. And more than anything, these traders believe in themselves. Not blindly, not arrogantly, but through effort, review, and brutal honesty. They've built conviction through exposure, confidence through testing, trust through pain. Their beliefs aren't static, they evolve because the market evolves. And that's your closing lesson. You don't need a final answer. You need a living philosophy, one that grows with your experience, one that withstands pressure, one that keeps you grounded in storms. Because trading isn't just technical, it's personal. It's a reflection of who you are and who you're becoming. Waiting for continue. So here's the bottom line. The New Market Wizards isn't a book about trading systems. It's a manual for how to think, feel, and evolve as a trader. Through every chapter, you've heard the voices of traders who didn't just master markets, they mastered themselves. Their stories expose your excuses, challenge your habits, and demand that you level up your mental game. You learned that risk is emotional, that ego ruins edge. That discipline is more than habit, it's your shield. You discovered that reacting beats predicting, that reflection builds strength, and that beliefs are the architecture of consistency. This book isn't about copying someone else's path. It's about creating yours with brutal honesty, relentless review, and radical responsibility. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start growing, go back to chapter 1. Reread the interviews, build your trading journal, define your beliefs, track your behavior. Use these lessons not just as knowledge, but as transformation. Because in this game, psychology is your strategy. If this hit home, like it, drop your favorite lesson in the comments and subscribe for more trading psychology breakdowns. Let's evolve together.